Hi, everyone. My name is Paul Dillon. I'm the founder of Cultivated Solutions. We operate a company that's based in cannabis education. Right now, we're focused on the retail sector, but we hope to provide courses that are open to the whole, everybody, consumers. There's a lot to learn about cannabis use, and a lot of people need help navigating the space. It's important that frontline staff are trained in cannabis and know the differences in ingestion methods, as well as all the products available. There's a lot of exciting products that people are going to hear about. They're going to go down to Denver or California, and they're going to come back and ask you questions like, what's a rosin? It's important you guys know that, right? Especially if you plan on opening your own dispensary. So we hope to make that a lot easier for you guys.
Stephanie, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Stephanie Ostrander, and I work for Cannabis at Work. We're Canada's only cannabis and hemp industry focused recruiting company. We also do a lot of other things in the HR space. We help companies set up their HR departments. We do consulting. And what we're also really known for is workplace impairment policy training for employers and employees across the country. We do conferences, workshops. We will go into a company's HR department and help them set up policy and educate. So, yeah.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thanks, David.
And Maurizio.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maurizio Calconi. I'm sorry I was late. I was just talking to someone. I've been in executive search for 12 years, and I'm now with a company called Cannabis Compliance. I head up talent acquisition for them. We're a small team right now. We're 3 people about to make a hire again, and we represent both licensed and non-licensed producers, hiring within full spectrum search elements, everything from QA, QC to horticultural roles, right up to board level roles. So here to help and hopefully address any questions that you have for this industry.
Okay, so unless anyone else, either of you have anything to add, I think we're just going to jump right into QA. So the idea here is just if you're looking to get into the industry, you have any questions at all, these folks should be able to help you with it. So let's just open up the floor. If you can raise your hand, and I'll bring the microphone around. We'll start with you over there.
Hi there. My question here. I was curious, what's the number one thing that employers would be looking for in somebody that will be looking to go into the cannabis industry? Is there specific training, or what's the number one thing they'll be looking for?
Well, just as Maurizio mentioned, one of the really popular jobs is quality assurance. Every licensed producer needs a quality assurance person who will then probably become a director or a manager, and they might also handle regulatory affairs. So for a quality assurance position, whether it's an associate or a higher up position, you would need a science degree. So the quality assurance techs, you could also have a college diploma in that area, but I would say from what I've seeing, it's a science degree, but also a horticulture degree. So especially these days, as companies become just so focused on the best product, it's great to have staff that have got horticulture degrees. So how about you, Maurizio? What do you think?
So I'm going to add on to that, and she's bang on. So that right now is that's a very general question. What's everybody looking for?
Yeah.
So when I've been helping people, just saying, what do you want before you start saying what everybody else is looking for? What do you want to get out of it? So one of the key pieces is that we are constantly looking for people who are qualified QA, QC people, and they typically do come from either consumer foods or a pharmaceutical background, because that's what Health Canada is mandating. So that's one of the hardier roles that are out there right now, and that would be the more generic and general role that every single company is looking for. And as they grow, for example, Bruce Linton said yesterday he has 400 open jobs. So, and that's nationally, and that's across the spectrum. Everybody, he said, from executive assistants all the way up to, I think he has even senior legal people looking in those types of opportunities. Does that help answer your question?
If I could add a little to that, in addition to the LPs, there's going to be a lot of new industry opening up with retail cannabis. That's going to open up a ton of stores, especially here in Alberta. We're working with about 250 stores in the first year. If you look at Calgary, there's over 300 liquor stores in Calgary. There's going to be a lot of growth. They're going to need managers, district managers. They're going to need retail staff. They're going to need, promotional staff. There's going to need marketers, people that know, art, that can bring in the crowds with their posters or, their information. It's not just that. The doors are open for potential tourism. There could be people that are interested that just, you know the area, your hiking trails. You're trying to set up a product where people can go out there, have a great time responsibly. The possibilities are endless in the new industry, but if you're looking for an education and where to start, the formal skills you acquire in other industries will translate into some of these spaces. If you have past retail experience managing stores, those skills are still necessary. Dealing with employee complaints, dealing with consumer complaints, new hiring, for example, what to look for. Skills like that are still the same in cannabis, right? If you're talking about onboarding education, well, that can be taught in a day, right? We can teach you in a day what concentrates are, what kind of flowers you should be consuming. But it's also important that people that are working the front lines understand that they're not doctors. So if you do plan on starting a career in cannabis or a retail cannabis, it's very important you draw those lines for your staff that they're not giving medical advice, that they are referring, patients to the wonderful teams at Harvest Med or Compass Clinics. There's tons of great doctors out there that know what they're talking about. That is the first step for a patient. For a recreational user who may not have used cannabis before, it's important they know dosing information and strain information or how different terpenes affect them. That stuff can be taught pretty easily, but the skills you gain from other industry, the managerial skills, the interpersonal skills, the time management skills, those are all still valuable.
Hey, I'm just wondering, where's the vast majority of the investment capital going right now, as well? Where's the vast majority of investment capital going in with the industry right now, as well as do you guys know of any particular niches that you think are going to be really big, maybe overlooked opportunities? That make sense?
Where is capital going?
Yeah, where's all the investment money going right now?
Right now, if you start looking at anyone who's just received their license, and there's been always a new announcement, somebody going public right now, the money is going to human capital, and that's hiring.
Yeah, okay.
We're hearing companies right now. Bruce Linton said there are 400 roles open there, and on their website alone. You're seeing that. It's going to be human capital is the next big step for these organizations. Everything from a cultivator, right, to the person picking the buds, all the way up to, as I mentioned a little earlier, to the people who are thinking about and envisioning where the company's going to go tomorrow, and especially on the edible side. So it's human capital is the next big expenditure.
Who else has a question? Raise your hand very high. You again, sir.
Could you guys speak a little bit about where the communications and media relations kind of side is going to be coming in, or if there's any trends or patterns happening with that so far?
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of, we've been approached already to hire within marketing spaces, and I asked the client who was looking to hire a head of marketing, and I said, what do you expect this person to do right now, since Health Canada hasn't really said what you're allowed to do? What is this guy going to do all day long? And they have a vision of what they think it's going to be. So right now, I think it's going to be a really strong Marcom opportunity for individuals. And Marcom is marketing communications, and I think that's going to be the key element within a lot of these organizations. Hiring people who can communicate to both internal clients, their internal customers, and as well to the external marketplace of what actually makes sense. And as well, I think within Marcom too, is going to be a big packaging segment. What's the packaging going to say? And you need people who design it properly, and you mentioned that a little earlier on, that people have that graphic insight too. So it's broad right now, but I think it's going to start narrowing in within the next year or two.
And if I may add to that, the restrictions are going to be geared towards the youth. We do not want adolescents using cannabis. They're the most at risk. So marketing is going to have to get creative. You're going to have to get out there in the communities. You're going to have to start grassroots movements, whether it's partnering with gyms, yoga studios, or even, retirement homes. The elderly can benefit from cannabis greatly. Setting up partnerships in your community is going to be a big deal. You want customers you want to inspire loyalty in your customers as a retailer. And in order to do that, you have to build relationships with them. So to get your message out there, you got to get them in the door, but it's going to be hard to attract them when you can't advertise in papers, or you can't, use traditional methods to get your message out there. So tapping into some social media networks can also help a lot. Social media influencers have a big play in this. But I mean, at the end of the day, you always got to be careful that we are not glorifying cannabis for adolescents. It doesn't have to be dangerous, but it can be for a select group of people. Unless you're a patient I mean, that's a completely different scenario. If you're not a patient, you should not be using cannabis recreationally before your brain's matured. You're fully developed. The endocannabinoid system is involved in a lot of important body processes. We don't know the full details, right? Research is going on daily. And until we have all the information, let's keep it away from kids.
Stephanie, I think I have a question, actually. So, Cannabis at Work, you guys obviously are the stopgap between a lot of employers and employees. How can an employee who's looking to get into the cannabis industry, taking their skills that they're arriving to the industry with, how can they help make themselves stand out from many other applicants?
That's a great question, David. Well, there's a few different ways. In this industry, coming to these conferences and meeting people, relationship building is really important. A great resume, people don't realize that you give me your resume, if it's kind of a mess, even if you've got great skills, I'm going to question why that resume is, scattered, it's not properly laid out, maybe there's some mistakes in it. So I would say, really get to know people in the industry, network, find a networking group in your area, in your city. There's lots of different things out there like Connections, Leaf. Get to know people at the booths. Go online as well. The cannabis industry is so active on social media. There's great influencers. Get on Twitter, get on LinkedIn, get to know people that way, engage with professionals on both of these platforms. Just going back to the resume, just how important the resume is, that's, when a recruiter like myself looks at a resume, I'm the gatekeeper. So, and then beyond that, it's, call the company or the recruiter and, hey, did you receive my resume? Just show a lot of professionalism. What else? And then, once you get to that point, maybe you get an interview, make sure you prepare really well for an interview. Do the research on the company that you're interviewing for. Find out as much as you can. Look up the different people in that company on LinkedIn. Connect on LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is a great resource in this industry. Cannabis is so active on LinkedIn. So I hope that helps. I could go on, but I'll let these gentlemen
Just
add
to further
that.
the LinkedIn bit, I agree. LinkedIn is an insanely good resource for this industry. Personally, I find that the cannabis industry is very approachable when you come to events like this. You constantly see the faces in the news. You can get a chance to actually talk to them. You message a lot of these people on LinkedIn. They get back to you, right? It's shocking. You can get in touch with people like Dr. Ethan Rousseau, people that are on the forefront of research that aren't in your neighborhood. It's pretty easy to get in touch with these people. It's insane. I was shocked.
I can add to that too. I'll keep adding to it. So I was asked earlier on by someone, how do I get into the industry? And I asked her, I threw it right back at her and I said, what do you do? And she didn't have an answer. And I said, what do you want to do in this space? And again, she didn't have an answer. And one thing I said is, what you need to do is understand who are the companies out there and create a target list. So this is a little thing in how when I go to market, I'm looking, if I'm being asked by a client to do a specific search for a group, I do two things. Number one, I create what I call a 100 list, a 100 company list. Okay. So in the cannabis space right now, there's not 100 companies that are hiring right now, but that will change. So create a client list where you want to see all the companies that you can envision yourself working out of it, right? When you have that 100 list, start looking at the jobs that they're offering and build it all out in Excel, all right? And make yourself your own personal database and build it out, keep on building that list out in Excel. By the time you're done, you'll start having this wicked little database for yourself where you find out who are the hiring people, what jobs are in the market right now, what companies are looking for, and who the people are. And then I love LinkedIn. I live on LinkedIn. It's a living database. Right? There are over, I think right now the number is 500 million people globally are on it. So if you're not on LinkedIn, as these corporations start becoming more sophisticated, they're going to start relying on LinkedIn to start looking at people, right? And I'm also going to encourage a lot of you too to clean up your Facebook profiles, etc., because a lot of these people are doing quick clicks and saying, oh look, here's Tom Jones. Let's see. Oh my God, what was he doing this weekend? And they might not look at this person. And I agree too with Stephanie with resumes. So I only spend on unsolicited resumes that come to my attention, I spend 2 hours a week on just unsolicited resumes. Like Stephanie, I only have a finite amount of time in a day. There's only so much time. So I literally, I'm being very honest here, I spend 30 seconds on a resume, right? And my favorite one that I had so far that came across my desk was a guy who took a picture of his resume, what he wrote on a cocktail napkin, and he emailed it to me. So I spent a little less than 30 seconds on that. So professional resumes are really important. You can go online and find them and to help tailor your resume to it. And so what I'm looking for are keywords. I'm looking for key elements within it, and I'm really fast at it. 12 years doing this, you can get really fast at looking at what's important to what I need for my clients. And then when I see them, I'm putting them aside and I start calling right away. So that's key to success in this space.
Yeah, no, that's great. I agree. And it's really worth it actually to pay for LinkedIn. Pay the $60 so that you can send people, a quick note about yourself, and make sure your profile looks really good and professional. It is a resume onto itself, your LinkedIn
LinkedIn is
profile.
owned by Microsoft now, so if you get the free version, you're going to get exactly what you pay for. The free version, heavily ad. So if you're looking for something, spend the $60 to avoid the ads. They're going to pop up and limit you to the amount of pages you can look at, and limit you. So if someone's a second degree, if I'm a second or third degree, or Stephanie here is a second or third degree from you, and you're using the free version, you won't be able to talk to us. You couldn't even send us a message. So invest in yourself, before you ask a company to invest in you.
Premium LinkedIn is also great for knowing who viewed your profile, right? If you're starting your own company like I was and you're trying to figure out who's out there, who's actually interested in what you do, LinkedIn will show you that. They'll show so-and-so checked out your profile, and that can be very helpful building a network, building connections. You can take the initiative off after that, call them up or message them back and be like, hey, this is what I am, this is what we do. Is there some way we can connect? Can we work together? Can we collaborate? This industry is ripe for collaboration, right? You collaborate, you get in there, you get your name out there, and potentially consolidate down the road.
What about those who are looking to get into the space but don't necessarily have the skills that the industry is looking for at the moment? What are some education streams out there perhaps that can help provide people the skills that the industry is looking for?
I would say you need to know what you want to do. Don't leave it up to someone else to direct you where you have to go in life. I grew up with my mom wanted me to be a police officer. I'm a recruiter. I couldn't be any further from when that happened. And she still doesn't know what I do. So I would figure out what you want to do and start targeting that area specifically, and then start looking at what do I need to be. Like all of a sudden, if you want to get into be a QA person in this space, all because you keep a really great household, a great kitchen, you might not be suitable for it. So you may have to start getting the education that's going to move you forward. So knowing what you want to do first and finding out what's important, and that's where you go back to networking. If you have certain skill set and you want to get into a certain space, but you don't have enough information on how to get in there, network to the right people who are doing that job and ask them how did they get started and what courses they recommend. So if you're able to get to the head grower at Canopy and you want to become a great grower and an horticulturalist, see if you can figure out a way to network to that person. Say, I don't want a job with you right now, but in the future I do. What did you have to do to get this great career? And they will take the time. If you can get 10 minutes on the phone with someone, that could be like a life-changing 10 minutes. So that's how I would go about that. Know what you want to do first.
And finding an industry mentor is always great. If you can find somebody who's established in the industry, has been out there, has been working for a while, and they actually take an interest in you and they're willing to develop you as an individual because they've seen you possess some of the more raw skills that they need: passion, dedication, professionalism, time management. They'll take an interest, they'll guide you, they'll shape you. They can turn you into Michelangelo. Like Michelangelo, they can turn you into a great piece of art.
Yeah, and just being a go-getter in this industry will get you somewhere. It really, if you can prove that you will, self-educate, do whatever it takes, work in this department, that department, work a booth, be super friendly, engaging, bring people in, that's a lot of points in this industry, actually.
Stephanie, sometimes there's a perception that the cannabis industry is very male-dominated, and I'm wondering do you feel that is a accurate perception, and what advice can you give to women looking to get into the cannabis industry?
Oh, touchy subject, David. So, interestingly enough, a lot of the executive positions in our industry are most definitely male-dominated, not all of them. And there's lots of reasons for that, societal reasons. Women do stay home to raise kids, they will work part-time. There's lots of reasons. So what's happening is not surprising. And there's also a lot of different industries that have led their way into the cannabis industry: pharmaceutical, mining, investment, right? So those are traditionally male dominated. Now, definitely things are changing, and in this country we have a lot of really, really strong women that have come to the table. They're horticulturalists, they're master growers. There actually are a few companies that have quite a few women at the top. They're just not as vocal as maybe we'd like them to be. If you want that to happen as a woman, if that's what you want to see, you got to fight for it. You got to ask to be on the board. You got to find out if there's an advisory board you can be on, a board of an LP. You got to ask for it. You have to get your name out there. Social media, there's a lot of activity on this subject, but if people just sit back and don't try and don't say anything and make allies, there's a lot of amazing men in this industry that support women and diversity and equality. So, it is what it is. And I think we will see a lot more women as this industry grows. It's a young industry, but it's up to women and men who believe in diversity. And diversity isn't just about women. It's about people of all color, all religion, LGBTQ. It's about everybody. So I think we all have to fight for our place and do it in the nicest, kindest way. Throwing sand at people rather than flowers is not the way to get attention and to move up. And so my motto is get along with people, be understanding, and throw flowers wherever you can. Everybody's trying to figure it out. So thanks, David. Yeah.
Either of you want to chime in on that as well?
I believe you're your own obstacle in your own career. You can be you can be the person who changes your life, but you can also be your own obstacle. So sometimes that's the biggest hurdle to overcome.
For sure, and if you want to make it happen, like they were saying, be a go-getter. And the industry's young. You can define your space. You can carve out a niche. You look ahead. There's going to be plenty of opportunities opening that people still haven't addressed because that's not where the big money is, right? People are still very focused in production, sales. But what about the secondary aspects of this? What happens when hemp becomes so commonplace that we are using it for building materials, right? We start making more paper out of hemp. Hemp is an amazing product. People call cannabis a billion-dollar product. Hemp is supposed to be a trillion-dollar product, if I understand correctly. It's got so many uses. Get in there, figure it out, define the space, be a leader, and then you can create change. We can work together to make this a meritocracy, right? All that should matter is, what can you do? What have you done? That's what matters.
I have a quick question. This is more on the recruiter side. Due to the increased unemployment in Alberta,
I'm sorry, I can't.
sorry, due to the increasing unemployment in Alberta, in terms of people in the oil industry, say engineers, where chemical and mechanical and so on, what are the transferable skills you come into the industry? I think people are scared to come into the industry, so I'm asking you in terms of, are they able to move into the industry? What kind of skills and where can they learn or
No, definitely.
Yeah.
If we're talking about engineers, for example, the industry definitely needs electrical engineers. They need mechanical engineers. These giant facilities that are going up don't design themselves, right? They need architecture. A lot of the construction crews are getting involved now. They're building the stores, the growing spaces, and there's tons of other skills from the oil industry that really can transition in if you're able to identify, what is my skill? What am I doing? How does it apply to this industry? Not all of this industry is about cannabis consumption, right? This is a legitimate business. As it matures and becomes a formal industry, there's plenty of room for accountants, bankers. They're necessary. We need more bankers working in cannabis, right? There's not enough of the traditional banks that are willing to work with small guys or small companies. We need to make that change, and that change is going to happen with professionalism, bringing over more professionals, and removing a lot of the risk that people think is associated with cannabis.
I just want to expand on that a little bit because that's I think a common misperception is that the cannabis industry is just bud tenders or people growing pot. This is an industry that marries the pharmaceutical industry and the agricultural industry, retail, just about anything you do or can think of doing, this industry needs. So bring those skills forward. And there's a lot of things that the industry needs that they don't necessarily know they need. Cannabis at Work is one example. There are a lot of other examples out there of people who saw a gap that wasn't being addressed yet. They didn't go out and try to work for someone else. They created this business for themselves. So there's an enormous amount of opportunity. So don't let anything hold you back.
Can I add to that? The irony of this industry is that the stigma would stereotype people who are kind of lazy, couch potatoes, a little slow. The irony, honestly, is that you have to have hustle if you want to be in this industry. I pick up the phone at 6 in the morning, 8 o'clock at night. I work long hours. I spend so much time in airports. And I'm sure you gentlemen can agree, and anybody who's working at these booths can say that you got to have hustle, you got to be willing to move, you got to be willing to do long days. It's a hard working industry right now, so.
Especially if you decide to open up your own shop, you just forget sleep. You know, there's so much for an entrepreneur to do here, and there's so many skills that you can pick up along the way to save money. You know, you can help market yourself online if you learn the skills necessary to run a Twitter channel or develop your LinkedIn feeds, right? Start writing articles, get your message out there. There's plenty of stuff you can do, and it just never stops. You know, like you should be learning daily, reading daily, identifying tasks, identifying weaknesses, overcoming obstacles.
So I guess I don't have any skills on paper for the industry. I'm in the construction business, but I have experience, you could say, in the industry. And I'm just looking to go from one side to the other with opening a store and maybe something. I don't know how the industry's going right now with the little guys. And so I'm just wondering how to get into that for myself.
Oh, it's a great question. I mean, I'm sure that's a sentiment shared by a lot of people here that want to get into the retail space. And I think, you know, the first thing you should do is look at the analytics. You know, there's tons of studies and papers done out there that are, you know, paid for. Stuff like MJ Biz Daily puts out an annual report that's really great. It breaks down, you know, the consumption of which kinds of products, the costs associated with certain states and provinces, what that's going to look like. You know, to people that are coming from the old industry, let's say, to the new one and want to make that transition, I mean, the law is going to have some restrictions as far as criminal records and the people in charge. So, I mean, as long as it's nothing serious and, you know, getting away with it, there's something you should get rid of it. You know, get out of that black space, legitimize yourself, legitimize your future, and, you know, stop being a part of the problem, become a part of the solution, right? There's a lot of misconceptions that people have about cannabis use and the stigmas around cannabis use, like you were saying. And a lot of that's going to come from education. And, you know, you need to make sure that you understand the product, the modern scientific understanding of the product, not something you learned from a guy that, you know, loved the Grateful Dead back in the day, right? Love the band, but you need formal knowledge on these topics. And that's going to come from personal enthusiasm, growth, and then follow the letter of the law. You know, if you want a career, you want a future, just abandon it all. Just be legit and focus yourself with companies that are, you know, doing that. It's going to be a little challenging at first because a lot of consumers are still going to the black markets. But you need to make them understand that, listen, you know, these products don't have Q&A. They haven't been tested for heavy metals. A lot of people like buying concentrates, which you're not going to be able to get right away. They're still going to want to go to their neighborhood dealer. You need to make sure that those people understand that, yeah, okay, concentrates are great, but they're also concentrating heavy metals, pesticides. You know, there might be residual solvents involved. A lot of consumers don't know these things. They don't know how these things are bad for them, and it's up to us to make sure they understand and that they can have fun responsibly and go forward in life.
So the industry is evolving, and it's up to you to evolve with it or stay in that gray zone, right? So that means you have to invest in yourself. And how much are you willing to invest in yourself to keep up with the evolution of the business? It's not going to slow down, right? It's going like this. Someone asked me the other day, Maurizio, when you came on board at Cannabis Compliance, how did your jobs go? And I went like this. So the industry's evolving. If you want to be part of the evolution, you just got to invest in yourself and change with it.
I would also maybe add that construction is needed too. Production facilities and stores and all these places do have to be built too, so construction skills are valuable as well.
I actually hire a lot of engineers. That is one of the big jobs that we hire for. Process engineers, chemical engineers, mechanical engineers. So, yeah.
Yeah, hi there. I'm fortunate enough to have some skills in the area, working in a medical profession. But my concern is what happens if you get a dispensary and you get set up and you've got your clientele and everything's rolling and it's going along good, and the pharmaceutical industry comes in and says, okay, you know what, we want to regulate this and we want a bigger piece of this pie, and we're losing money from all the medications that you no longer need to take because you're getting everything sorted out with a cannabis prescription. And you know, it's very frustrating for me because working in Alberta Health Services, I've approached the Vice President of Alberta Health Services and asked her if they have any programs, if they have anything set in stone, what they're going to do. They don't have anything. I've talked to the managers where I work and the higher ups as high as I could possibly go. They don't have anything, and I'm going, you guys, July 1st, like what are you doing? You should have been working on this 2 years ago. And, you know, I'm just kind of concerned if you guys have any insight to that, because I really want to get something going, but I'm also fearful that somebody's going to come in and sweep the rug from under me. And I know that they've done that with healthcare, alternative health, natural medicine and stuff like that, supplements and stuff like that. Sorry, I know it's a lot. Here, I'll give you the mic back. Take that mic away.
No, that's a very interesting question. That's a great question, and I believe it was in the paper today. BDS Analytics put out a study that was talking about the future of cannabis and how much this industry is going to grow globally. You know, globally, we're looking at something by 2027 that's going to be like $57 billion. That's a big enough pie for everybody. They also do a little bit of analysis into the spread between medical and recreational patients. You know, it's going to be a bit more geographical in the spread. Certain areas you're going to get more recreational patients, others they were predicting to get more medicinal. But I mean, the stats were something like 37% medicinal and the rest recreational. So yes, big pharma is going to move in, but the thing with them is they're creating different products. They're focusing on titration, making sure that people get adequate doses at the effective time. They're creating products that are going to be very different from the products that you see in the retail landscape. And if you can help, you know, teach patients and teach consumers about the differences, then you'll be able to establish yourself, right? Again, this is a business about building relationships. You're not going to have one-off sales, right? There's not that many LPs out there. There's not that much genetic diversity in the strains yet. A lot of the products are going to be very similar, and you have to work hard to distinguish yourself, and that's going to happen through customer relations, right? So if you're worried about, you know, potential regulations and changes like that, you just need to make sure you do what you're doing really well. You cut off that little space for yourself, and you excel, right? And then down the road, I know in some states they can have medical right next to recreational. Are they going to do that in Canada? I don't know. I personally prefer if people that are medical patients go to Shoppers Drug Mart or a clinic that is allowed to prescribe, because there's a lot of other stuff involved. You know, a lot of the peoples in recreational stores are not doctors. You don't go to a dispensary for medical advice. That's happening too much in the current space, right? You need to go to a medical professional, somebody that understands cannabis, and there needs to be a big division. There needs to be a big division in the consumers. They need to understand this is medical, this is recreational. They're completely different.
Hello. My question, I guess, initially is for Paul. You'd mentioned some online training being open to the public market in the near future. Is there a timeline on that for you? And is
we're launching ours on, I believe, May 1st.
Yeah, no, we actually have a Cannabis Essentials course, which is geared to anybody who wants to learn more about cannabis. We talk about ingestion methods, all the different products that are available. We talk about certain things like, well, why is an edible different than, you know, an inhalation? Well, that's because of a metabolite, 11-hydroxy, you know, THC. When you empower people with this information, they can go into any field of the industry. Our course will be online on Friday.
Excellent, thank you. As a follow-up to the group, are you aware of any internships or that type of program that might be available for the industry?
That's interesting you're saying about the internship. We were just talking with one of our LPs the other day, and the topic of apprenticeships came up. and it's going to happen. It's just it's moving in that direction where there will be apprentice, master growers, apprentice QA people. It just takes a little bit of time. It's going in that direction. It's going to happen.
Just to add to that quickly, if you are interested in taking our course, sign up today. We'll give you 20% off.
You told me 50.
And definitely the agriculture schools will be looking at this and doing, cooperatives and work placements at some point in time. Yeah.
In some ways, you've already addressed this question. One of my concerns is, let's say you work in this industry for a while, and then down the road, you start pursuing other opportunities in unrelated industries. How much bias can you expect to encounter when that happens?
You have to be prepared for it. Not everybody buys into it. I told a client one day, he said, I want you to target all these consumer good companies. And I said, I will, but you're not PepsiCo yet. Not everybody wants to work in this space. So there are going to be some biases in it. You just have to accept it. If you go down a path, don't look back. Keep going forward.
It's going to take a long time for the stigma around cannabis use to change. That's not something that's going to happen overnight. That's only going to happen if we have educated people that are working the front lines. There's accurate representation in the media. All too often we're still seeing cannabis that's characterized as almost cartoonish, right? Yeah. The public image isn't going to change until there's more professional standards brought in, but slowly it does change. You look at stats like from some of the states. As cannabis gets legalized, more people are using edibles. The elderly are using edibles. These are demographics that grew up, for the full length of the drug war. They grew up with utter Nixon garbage that was turned into, Reagan's nonsense. And that didn't end for a lot of years. They were bombarded with BS and stigma and stigma and stigma. And we need to make sure that we take that burden on ourselves in the industry to show people, no, this is responsible cannabis use. People can just enjoy a joint once in a while. People can have an edible at Christmas time or before eating Thanksgiving dinner. It's great. You eat way more turkey. But that's going to take time.
And I really believe this industry in Canada is hitting critical mass, and it's going to happen for the rest of the world, right? So, what side do you want to be on? And education is how, this whole industry advances with education and breaking the stigmas. So.
Earlier you had mentioned some of the stigmas about working in the industry, but I wanted to point out, I think that to some degree the stigmas are also a benefit because it means that there are more opportunities for those who are willing to take that perceived risk to jump into this industry. As that stigma decreases, the job opportunities there's going to be a lot more competition. So if you want to get into this industry now, this is a critical time because it's a wonderful opportunity for those who have the vision to recognize the direction that things are going. Okay, let's have a round of applause for our panel.